I think it's got more to do with ego than it does illness, in all honesty.
This was quite a shock that Meghan wasn't at the Kevin Costner event, wasn't it? On Friday night, after that damning Hollywood Reporter takedown, after she decided to call in sick to a major Kevin Costner charity event, some of the best royal insights online, and I'm delighted that she joins me now. And you'll remember last year, Meghan very much was there center stage.
For months, the whispers were getting louder, but nobody expected Prince Harry himself to finally snap. According to insiders, the man who once defended Meghan against the world has reached his breaking point. Behind palace gates and glossy photo ops, Harry is said to be furious, tired of the excuses, tired of the endless drama, and tired of watching his reputation crumble while Meghan dodges the blame. And now, for the first time, someone close to the couple is spilling exactly what happened behind the scenes.
What do you think is going on? Is she really sick?
I personally, with Meghan, we know that she's excited to turn up at the opening of an envelope.
From late-night shouting matches to icy silences in Montecito, Harry has reportedly made it clear, enough is enough. Polished fairy tale is over. The Sussex brand is cracking wide open, and even their closest allies are stunned by how quickly the truth is spilling out. So what finally pushed Harry over the edge? Why is he done covering for Meghan, and what does it mean for their future? You're about to hear every detail.
For her to turn that down, it must be something serious. And she was humiliated, not once, but twice. The organisers not wanting her to have the microphone.
It all started with one seemingly simple decision, a no-show that set off a chain reaction nobody could have predicted. When Meghan failed to appear at Kevin Costner's charity event for first responders, people were puzzled. The excuses began immediately. She was unwell, she needed rest, she was too busy to make an appearance. But for those who've been watching closely, this was just the latest in a long line of unexplained absences. Last year, she'd been front and center at that same event, soaking up the cameras and the attention. But this time, she disappeared without a trace. Behind the scenes, insiders say Harry was livid. He reportedly told friends he was tired of putting on a show when Meghan was unwilling to face the fallout of their choices. The most shocking part? He wasn't keeping these frustrations to himself anymore. In private conversations, Harry is said to have vented that he was fed up with the endless spin and carefully staged photo ops. According to a longtime aide, Harry confided, "I've carried this long enough. She doesn't care about the impact on me, on the family, or on our work." The words were blunt, raw, and unmistakable. Proof that the man once hopelessly devoted to protecting Meghan's image was finally starting to question everything. If you think this was an isolated moment of anger, think again. Meghan's absence didn't just leave an empty space on the guest list. It reopened wounds from the year before. When she did show up to the same event, she was humiliated not once but twice. Organizers reportedly refused to let her grab the microphone, prompting an awkward dance of outstretched hands and polite rejections. For Meghan, used to controlling the narrative, it was a rare moment of public embarrassment. But for Harry, it was even worse. He felt the sting of being laughed at, diminished, and treated as if he was little more than a prop in someone else's story. That memory never faded, and when Meghan pulled out of this year's event with vague excuses, Harry saw it as a deliberate retreat, a refusal to face criticism or rebuild trust. A source who has known the couple for years put it simply, Harry believes she cares more about appearances than substance. He's exhausted from pretending otherwise. But the Costner charity gala was only the spark. The explosion came days later when the Hollywood Reporter dropped an exposé so scathing, even seasoned royal watchers were left reeling. The article painted Meghan as a dictator in heels, citing 12 separate insiders who described a culture of fear, control, and constant demands. This wasn't a single disgruntled employee. This was a dozen voices telling the same story. The Hollywood Reporter's investigation didn't happen overnight. Reporters had spent months gathering testimony, checking records, and confirming every claim before they dared to publish. When the piece finally went live, Meghan's team scrambled to contain the fallout. But no matter how quickly the PR machine worked, the damage was done. According to multiple sources, Harry was blindsided by how severe the accusations were. He'd known there were grumblings about Meghan's leadership style. After all, their staff turnover had been staggering, but he hadn't realized how deep the resentment ran. In private, he reportedly told a confidant that he felt ashamed and betrayed, not only by the people who spoke out but by Meghan's refusal to take any responsibility. In one tense conversation, he's said to have finally confronted her. "You can't keep blaming everyone else. We're here because of your choices." That sentence, delivered in a moment of raw frustration, was the first time Harry had openly challenged Meghan in years, and it sent shockwaves through their inner circle. One advisor said it was like watching a dam break after years of carefully contained tension, and the cracks only grew wider. Just as the Hollywood Reporter piece ignited headlines, Meghan chose to skip yet another high-profile appearance. This time, it was the Emmy party hosted by her own agency, WME. Insiders say it was the perfect chance to reclaim some goodwill, to show she wasn't hiding from controversy. But instead of showing up, she disappeared again. Some speculated she was licking her wounds. Others claimed she simply couldn't face the questions. Whatever the reason, Harry saw it as a glaring sign that their strategy was crumbling. When he walked into the Kevin Costner event alone, it wasn't just Meghan's absence that weighed on him. Witnesses described how he looked tired, distracted, and almost defeated. A viral video caught the moment Richard Marx's wife mistook him for Prince William, tagging the wrong royal account online. Another clip showed Richard Marx himself nearly walking past Harry without recognizing him. For a man who once commanded respect simply by entering a room, it was an excruciating reminder of how far he'd fallen. And behind the scenes, Harry's frustration boiled over. According to one longtime friend, he vented that he felt humiliated and irrelevant, tired of playing the part of supportive husband while his own identity disappeared. He reportedly told his inner circle that he was done carrying the burden alone. PR fallout wasn't just external. Even the institutions that once bolstered their image began to quietly distance themselves. The National Portrait Gallery, which had once been expected to display a glossy black and white portrait of the couple, announced that it had no plans to hang the photo after all. For Meghan, who thrives on visual storytelling, it was a subtle but powerful rejection. And for Harry, it was one more sign that their star power was dimming. When Meghan's team decided to issue a denial of the Hollywood Reporter piece, they made a surprising choice. Instead of going to a friendly outlet like People magazine, they approached GB News, an organization that had been critical of the Sussexes in the past. The resulting article was strange, defensive, and almost desperate in tone. It insisted that Meghan's alleged early morning emails were misunderstood and that no bullying had ever occurred. Even casual observers could see it was an attempt to rewrite the narrative, and it fell flat. To those close to Harry, the move was further proof that Meghan's obsession with controlling the story was blinding her to reality. One source said he thinks she's so fixated on optics that she's lost any sense of perspective, and he's tired of cleaning up the mess. But the controversies didn't stop there. Another scandal emerged, this time involving the Invictus Games, Harry's most personal project. Canadian veteran came forward, claiming he'd been injured while competing and left thousands of dollars in debt because the foundation refused to cover his medical costs. For Harry, who built Invictus to honor and uplift wounded veterans, the accusation was a devastating blow. It didn't matter that the foundation disputed the claim. Public perception was already turning. According to insiders, Harry was furious when he learned about the controversy. He reportedly demanded answers from Invictus leadership and asked why more hadn't been done to support the veteran. In private, he blamed Meghan's relentless push for celebrity status for distracting him from the causes that mattered. One confidant said Harry told them, "I lost sight of why I started this in the first place." It was the closest he'd ever come to admitting that walking away from the royal family had cost him more than he'd imagined. While Harry was grappling with the fallout, Meghan was nowhere to be seen. She stayed behind in California, issuing statements through proxies and watching the chaos from a safe distance. According to friends, Harry saw her absence as the final straw. He reportedly confronted her again, this time in a tense, late-night argument. "I can't keep doing this alone," he told her. "You need to face what you've created." Those words were a turning point. For years, Harry had been her fiercest defender, shielding her from criticism, deflecting blame, and sacrificing his own reputation to protect hers. But in that moment, he finally admitted to himself that he was exhausted. Insiders say Meghan was stunned by his bluntness. She'd grown used to Harry's loyalty, to his willingness to absorb any backlash as long as she stayed above the fray. But as their brand continued to unravel, even she couldn't ignore the truth. The old strategy wasn't working anymore. Publicly, the couple tried to maintain a united front, but privately, they were drifting apart. Friends noticed that Harry began spending more time alone, retreating to the guest house on their Montecito property and avoiding joint appearances whenever possible. He reportedly told one aide, "I feel like I'm losing myself." For a man who once embraced the idea of building a new life with Meghan, the realization was devastating. And it didn't help that the public was catching on. Online forums buzzed with speculation about their marriage. Commentators pointed out that Harry looked gaunt and unhappy in recent photos. Every no-show, every awkward exchange, every defensive press release added to the perception that something was deeply wrong. Even their most loyal supporters struggled to reconcile the couple's polished Instagram posts with the reality of their unraveling partnership. The Sussex brand, once seen as fresh, bold, and unstoppable, had become a cautionary tale of overexposure and hubris. By the time Harry traveled to New York alone for yet another high-profile event, the change was impossible to ignore. In photos, he looked like a man going through the motions, smiling politely, shaking hands, but with an unmistakable weariness in his eyes. According to an aide, he doesn't want to be here. He doesn't know who he is anymore. And that's the tragedy of it. Harry started this journey believing he was escaping the constraints of the royal family, seeking freedom, purpose, and authenticity. But somewhere along the way, he traded one set of expectations for another. Now, as he stands on the brink of a personal and professional reckoning, he's left wondering if any of it was worth it. Will this be the end of the Sussex partnership? Or is this just another rough chapter in an already turbulent story? For now, Harry's declaration, "Enough is enough," is a sign that the fairy tale is over. Question is whether either of them will admit it out loud. So what do you think? Is Harry finally waking up to the reality of his choices? Or is this just another cycle of conflict and denial? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you see the cracks too, and don't forget to subscribe for more raw royal commentary. But even as Harry's frustration was finally bubbling to the surface, there was something almost tragic about the way he kept trying to salvage what was left of their shared image. According to people familiar with the couple, he would still go over statements line by line, still insist on approving every press release, still try to find a version of the truth that might save face. In a way, it was as if he hadn't fully accepted that no amount of spin was going to reverse the damage. A close friend described it this way: "He wants so badly for the world to see the good in Meghan. He still clings to the hope that all of this can be fixed if they just tell their side of the story. But he's starting to realize that it's too late. People have made up their minds. And that's exactly what makes this moment feel so significant, because for years, the Sussexes were masters of the narrative. When they left the royal family, they were hailed as brave truth-tellers. When they sat down with Oprah, they commanded the global conversation. When they launched Archewell, they positioned themselves as philanthropic innovators. But now, the same media that once treated them as an unstoppable force was dissecting their every move with a mix of pity and derision. It wasn't just tabloids either. Even some mainstream outlets began to question the contradictions between the couple's stated values and their behavior. One journalist wrote, "You can't claim to be champions of mental health while publicly torching your own family, or insist you value privacy while staging elaborate photo ops." Those critiques were once dismissed as jealousy or bias, but in recent months they've become harder to ignore. If you look closely, you can see how the pressure has warped everything around them. Staff members have come and gone in waves. Assistants, PR consultants, personal aides, and even friends who once swore loyalty but eventually drifted away. According to insiders, the turnover was partly due to the impossible standards Meghan set, but it was also about Harry's increasing isolation. One former staffer put it bluntly: he became trapped in this cycle of protecting her, and in the process, he lost himself. In the past, Meghan was described as fiercely protective of her image. She controlled her schedule down to the hour. She vetted every headline. But after the Hollywood Reporter piece landed, something shifted. For the first time, she seemed unable to suppress the story or pivot to something more flattering. And that loss of control was intolerable. Insiders say that's when the arguments with Harry reached a new intensity. There were reports of shouting behind closed doors. One source claimed they heard Meghan accusing Harry of betraying her by not doing more to challenge the article's claims. Harry, for his part, was said to have finally snapped, telling her, "You've made this impossible."